Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being so courageous to show up early. I can tell you I didn't want to. I wanted to sleep a couple more hours, man. It's always a danger, and I guess it's one of the reasons I come down here, and it's one of the prices I always pay. I never go to bed before midnight because, you get a chance to sit down and talk about all this cosmic stuff with people you haven't seen in years, And so a lot of the cool stuff at UFO conferences happen after hours, in somebody's room. Usually involves some whiskey or something, So I didn't hurt myself last night, but I did stay up too late. Okay. So if you see me nodding off, I'm sorry. But I'm glad you're here. And we'll kick off the biggest day of our conference, obviously, and have some more fun. All right, so our first speaker is the subject of a documentary titled We Are Not Alone, which premiered in January of this year. The documentary is based on her book, We Are Not Alone, My Extraterrestrial Contact, where she details her life as an ET experiencer from the age of 5. She is a psychic medium and the author of 4 books, An Extraordinary Life, We Are Not Alone, My Extraterrestrial Contact, Between Heaven and Earth, and A Beginner's Guide to Living a Spiritual Life, and Messages from Ramadir, A Collective Hope for Humanity. She can also be heard on many podcasts and radio programs around the country. So join me in welcoming, where'd you go, Kristi? Oh, there you are. Kristi Pederson.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction. He gave away my whole story. I got nothing to say now. All right, who stayed at the bar too long last night? No hands? I said, who stayed at the bar too long last night? Nobody? Yeah, you're lying. I know you are. Everybody has secrets. And those secrets are usually things where we're embarrassed of our behavior and we don't want people to know, or we fear judgment from other people. I had 2 major secrets that I have hung on to most of my life. The first one was that I was a psychic medium, and when unsolicited things would come out of my mouth, or unfiltered things, people would roll their eyeballs, or they'd physically push back from me, and I hadn't even realized what I said. But I learned to be quiet at a very, very young age. My biggest secret, however, was that I'm a contactee with extraterrestrials from the age of 5. And that's a pretty big secret to carry. So we're going to talk about that. When I figure out the clicker. Yeah. So I finally had the courage, because everything I do has got the subtext of courage. And if I've got courage to stand in front of you today, you've got courage to tell your secrets and be yourself. To me, that's the most important thing ever. So when I decided to write the book, My Extraterrestrial Contact, it took so long, because every time I'd put fingers to the computer, I'd want to throw up just a little bit. And because I feared judgment from my family, from my friends, and don't we all have that, where we're afraid to do things because we're afraid of judgment or what other people are going to think of us? And finally, one day it clicked in my head, I'm not writing the book for my family. I'm not writing the book for my friends. I'm writing this book for people who have had experiences like me and have nobody to talk to and nowhere to go. After I had that recollection, or that epiphany, everything just flew out of my fingers, and the book was written in a pretty short amount of time. The difficult part is, and this is for most people, I've got a few very conscious memories, but most of the contact was delivered to me through downloads. And if you're not familiar with what a download is, it's like someone handing you an encyclopedia. You've got all the information in your hands, but how do you make sense of it? And that's what a download is. I would just be in a business meeting. I would be taking my morning walk, something like that, and boom, I would get this download of information where I had been taken on a craft, I'd been examined, I'd been brought back home, and didn't know when this had taken place. So it's difficult sometimes to talk about abduction, contact, experience when you don't remember in a chronological order. And so I had to try to piecemeal this all together. And my first question was, why me? Why was I contacted? Why was I taken on crafts? Why was I exposed to things of which I had no concept of? I had no idea. But then again, why not me? Why not anybody? The question that I don't have an answer to, though, is, am I psychic medium because I was contacted? Or the opposite? Was I chosen because I am a psychic medium? It's a chicken and egg kind of theory. But why not me? It started, my first contact was at the age of 5. And I was very sick, and I call this an NDE. But it wasn't the typical NDE where you die, you're taken to heaven and said it's not your time and you're sent back. But I was very sick. And at 5 years old, my whole family had the flu. And that included my mom, my dad, my older sister. I have a twin sister. Let's mix it up even a little bit more. Have a twin in there. And they'd all had the flu, and they recovered within a day or two. After day 5, I was still throwing up till my mom put me upside down on the sofa with a pail or a bucket so I could just continually vomit all the time. Now that would never fly today, but this was 1960 when I was 5 years old. And that was kind of the standard way. We had one car, as most families did, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And so my mom couldn't just bundle everybody up and take them to the hospital. So finally, after day 5, she did call the doctor, and the doctor said, get her to the hospital right now. I will meet you there. So she called my dad, came home, and he took care of the kids while she took me to the hospital. And they put me in intensive care and jury-rigged a bed with ice underneath it to lower my temperature. And I was in blankets on top of the ice. And I had this lovely nurse who kept feeding me orange soda. And, 5-year-old kid, give me some orange soda. I was raised on Kool-Aid. Orange soda was a big treat. But every 15 minutes for hours, waking me up, force-feeding me orange soda, I said, I'm never going to drink that again the rest of my life. But all I wanted was to go home. And I just kept looking, going, I want to go home, I want to go home. And it was not the home where my family lived. That home was somewhere out there. And that's been a steady theme of my life, of wanting to go home, but not knowing where home was. Well, sometime during the night, I noticed the nurse was frozen, just kind of standing there. And I thought, well, that's really odd. And this doctor came in, not looking like any doctor I'd ever seen in my life. He had a stethoscope in his bottom right pocket, and there were no lights, there was no sound at this point, and the reflection off of that stethoscope was so bright it obscured his face. And I thought, what is that reflecting off? As a little 5-year-old, I knew that was not right. Well, this doctor came over to my right side and started talking to me telepathically and told me I would always be safe and always be protected. I've never forgotten that message, and believe me, I've taken that for a spin because it's about to get real. You get to a point where you have your life together and you're happy, but it takes a lot of mistakes to get there, and I made a lot of them. So with an NDE, it wasn't like I said that I died, met God, and got sent back. But the next day when my parents came to visit me, the real doctor, said, we almost lost her last night. And because there was no blood, how sick could she be? Well, I was that sick. And they took me home, I think a few days later, I don't even know how long the stay was, and I recovered nicely. But it was maybe when I was 40 that my mom finally told me that I almost died that night. I didn't know it then, and I didn't know it for 35 years until I was 40. And it just, I don't know why, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I think that probably could have been what I call an early out. Because I believe when we come into this human body, we have an end date and an end way in mind. And then we have the opportunity for a few early outs. And I knew that this life was going to be difficult on some level. And I think that was probably one of my early outs, and I decided to stay. And I question that sometimes. So with family life, why do we pick our family? Why did I pick these people to be my teachers? Because they are. Our family's always our teacher. There, my dad was taking the picture, so he's not in there. So you can see, aren't I adorable? It's the little one over there with my twin sister. And my baby brother had just been born. But it was Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We were Lutheran, Scandinavian, just like the rest of the entire city. And don't let this red hair fool you. It's bought and paid for. Very much a blonde. And so with the family dynamics, I knew I didn't fit in to my family. You know, you're supposed to behave. You're supposed to do what your family expects you to do. And I tried so hard to fit in, and I just couldn't do it. To the point we were at a 4th of July picnic with some family friends, and my parents rarely drank. Maybe New Year's Eve, you know, they'd tip a few. But this one couple that we were on 4th of July vacation with, they had some beer with them. And the lady, she goes, "Kristi, would you like some coffee?" Just teasing me. And I went, "Joanne, little girls don't drink coffee." And she's like, "Well, then really, what do they drink?" And I said, "Beer." And then proceeded to have a hissy fit when they wouldn't give me any beer. And they finally acquiesced, and there is a picture somewhere of me tipping back a long neck at the age of 5. They should have known. By then it was going to be trouble. But when you try to fit in and you don't belong, you wonder what's wrong with you. And I'm sure all of you can relate to that. When you've got an interest in UFOs, people question you. And, you know, I come from the world, if you saw anything, you spoke about UFOs at all, you were made to look ridiculous. And people made fun of you. And I was not about to set myself up for that kind of ridicule. And so I was very quiet about what was happening to me, about trying to fit into my family where I didn't fit in. They're very traditional. I wasn't. And I had so many different physical anomalies. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those later on. But, you know, everybody has got physical things. That's just part of being human, part of growing up. But when you put them all together, it tells a completely different story. In nosebleeds was probably the most common for me. And it's not a nosebleed. I would have a bath towel strapped around me. And my mom, she would even put little clothespins here on my shirt to hold the bath towel in place while blood just gushed out of my nose. So they took me to a doctor to find out what was wrong with me. I would faint all the time. And this would be mostly at school performances. And I was so excited. I love to perform. I'm a musician. I've been a singer for a very long time. And so I was so excited. And we'd line up, you know, in the hallway to go onto the bleachers and perform for Mom and Dad. And boom, I would pass out every time. So off to the doctor to find out what's wrong with me. Chronic back pain as a little kid. Off to the doctor, what's wrong with her? And it was just, and there's a lot more as I got older. But when you start putting all of these physical anomalies together, something's not right. And just spent a lifetime. There's a point when my mom even took me to a psychologist to find out what was wrong with me. And he asked me some questions, and in my very blunt, unfiltered way, gave him answers, and he questioned my mother's parenting ability, which meant we never went back. But that was the seed that was always planted in me, what was wrong with me. So I grew up with very low self-esteem and creating chaos wherever I went. Because from the time of 5 up until the age of 30, I had no memory of any kind of contact. Things were going on, I've learned now through hypnosis, all the time. But at the time, I didn't know, but I knew something wasn't right. So I was acting out, and one day I'd be sweet and kind. The next day I would just be, hell on wheels. And the next day I'd be crying. Just trying to make sense of what was happening to me, and I had no memory of it. I mean, how do you make sense of that? So the way I decided to make sense of all of it was to get married. I mean, doesn't that sound logical? Yeah. Any bets on how long that marriage lasted? If anybody guessed a minute and a half, you win. It was a little bit longer than that. But I decided that I picked a man that my parents loved. Absolutely loved him. And I thought if they loved him, maybe they would love me. And that didn't work either. Because as now a 19-year-old married girl, I certainly was not a woman yet, I wanted to party. I wanted to have fun. So I met what I call my best friend at the time, the wild child. I just loved her. And we would go party, and my husband would get mad, and then I'd get party a little bit more, just trying to figure it out. Oy. And at the age of 21, my twin sister called me, and she said, I just read the most fascinating book, The Search for Bridie Murphy. And I thought, how gullible can she be? I'm going to get that book from the library, and I'm going to read through it, and I'm going to point out all the glaring errors to show her how gullible she is. So the next day I went to the library, checked out the book, and read it cover to cover and was mesmerized. And that was my first venture, my introduction into metaphysics. And you wonder how metaphysics and ufology are connected. They're completely connected. But it started my spiritual journey. And believe me, I'm a little bit slow on the uptake, because some people, they have an epiphany and their life changes overnight. No, mine was decades of little teeny tiny baby steps. And I remember one time I was with my wild child friend, and the bars had closed, and we went to some stranger's house to continue partying, and about 5 o'clock in the morning, we leave, and where are we? Which direction is home? And that's another question. Which direction is home? And I remember a voice coming in my head saying, is this really how you want to live your life? And I said, no, this isn't. But I didn't know how to change. I didn't know how to alter my behavior because I didn't understand what was causing all of it. But I started taking classes. I started really furthering my education into the study of metaphysics. Ufology was not in my consciousness yet at this point. And got divorced. Shocking. And evidently, I decided South Dakota was not big enough for the two of us. So I packed everything I owned and started driving until I ran out of land. Ended up in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. And got a job the first day I got there, and found a friend of a friend who lived there who let me move in with her, and I thought, my life is going to change. This is going to be fabulous. That first day, she took me to her favorite bar and introduced me to her drug dealer. And I'm like, well, I have an ocean nearby. That was the only change. And so I continued my ways. And I was very good at my job, though. I was a makeup artist. And I traveled all of Northern California for that. So I could party all night long and wake up in the morning and go to work all day and do a great job. And the partying didn't get in the way. I was young. Yeah, now it's like I look at a bottle of booze and it's like, can't do it. So my first contact that I remember was at the age of 30. And after, well, let's just say this. I'm going to kind of put this in a little bit of a nutshell. Born and raised in Sioux Falls, moved to the Bay Area of San Francisco, was transferred with my job to Phoenix, then transferred to Knoxville, Tennessee, then back to Sioux Falls, then to Los Angeles, then to Omaha, then to San Diego, then back to Omaha. The only thing that had in common was everywhere I went, there I was. And I couldn't escape me. So I had to start learning how to make peace with myself. And I always knew I never wanted to have children. And this is part of the unspoken psychic medium part, because I would have friends, and they'd been married, they'd been trying to have a child, and they'd come to me and say, Kristi, I just found out I'm pregnant. And do you know what my first response was? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. They'd look at me like, what kind of cruel idiot are you? And so I'd backpedal, a little bit and go, oh, no, I'm so happy for you. That's so exciting. I'll talk to you in 18 years. I just knew I didn't. And my older sister, she goes, don't do anything about it, because at the age of 30, your maternal instincts will kick in. And you'll be so sorry, if you do anything to alter that. So I'm like, tick tock, waiting for my 30th birthday to come. And my 30th birthday present to myself was to have my tubes tied. Didn't come with a bow, no card. And about 2 weeks after I'd had my tubes tied, I was lying on my bed on a Sunday afternoon reading a book, and 3 beings popped in my room, a female and 2 males. And they looked very Egyptian to me. And as you all know, extraterrestrials can screen themselves, and they can appear to look however they want to. And they chose Egyptian to me. And I could only see them from about the bust level up. They had no bodies. And they looked like they were right out of Star Trek. They had the red tops with the black yoke on it, little medallion kind of thing here. And they were mad at me. And they were talking to me telepathically. And what they did is paralyze me. As I saw them pop into my room, instantly I was paralyzed. I could move my eyes, but that was about it. They flipped me over, lifted me up from behind, and did an exam. What they realized is that I still had eggs. They couldn't go down the fallopian tube anymore, but I still had them, so they still had access to them. And they left that fast, as quick as they showed up. And I became able to move again and found myself on all fours on my bed, wondering what just happened to me. And I tried to talk to a friend. We were on a walk one day, and I still wasn't public as a psychic medium. And I told her what had happened to me. And I could tell what was going on in her mind, and it was, I believe her. Is she crazy? Can I have her committed? Can we still be friends? All of those thoughts running through her head. And I thought, I'm having so much trouble processing this. How can I expect someone else to instantly process it? It took me years to figure that one out, though. I was actually kind of upset at the time. So again, I learned how to be quiet. And I learned how to shut up. I learned how to keep secrets. I did branch out to one other friend, and a very similar thing happened. And it's like, okay, twice now. To very dear friends, shut up. Shut up. I couldn't let it go, though, because it didn't make sense to me. And I started doing research and discovered Dr. Jack Kasher. He was the head physicist at UNO, which is the University of Nebraska at Omaha. And he was also the head field investigator for the state of Nebraska. And I reached out to him and asked if I could make an appointment. And he said yes. And as I'm walking through a college campus to go talk about UFOs, go figure, I thought, what if he believes me? What if he thinks I'm crazy? Either thought was equally terrifying to me. And I sat down and started to talk to him and told him my story, and he believed me. The first person that believed me. And I was so grateful, and I credit him with saving my life because he made sense of something that I couldn't. And he told me about a support group. I'm like, in Omaha, Nebraska, there's a support group? There's more people like me? I mean, that's just crazy. And so I went to this support group and walked in. I hardly got to tell my story at all because everyone else is like, "Oh, fresh meat. Let's get her." And they're telling me all of their stories. And they were so similar to my stories. It was just amazing. It's like I found my peeps. I'm here. This is awesome. Then Dr. Kasher told me about a symposium in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm so confused. What is going on? I didn't know UFOs existed. And all of a sudden, I'm having contact. There's a support group. There's a symposium. And so I went to this symposium and got to meet Stanton Friedman, Linda Moulton Howe. And Linda opened up to questions, and I told her a brief version of my story. And she told me it probably was not an isolated incident. And it's like, yeah, that's just what I want to hear. So I walk away a little bit numb from that, but decided this is my new area of study. I've got to figure this out. And once I learned that, it was almost like giving the ETs a permission slip. And that's when the downloads started happening. But I would go to bed, and I knew that they were coming. There would be a shift in the air, and it would be terrifying. And I would just, to catch my breath, and then boom, I was gone, and I was on a craft. And here's the thing. Once I was on the craft, it wasn't scary at all. It was like, okay, well, this must be what it is. It's fine. But how would you feel if in the middle of the night anything, let alone an extraterrestrial, popped up in your bedroom? It's terrifying. And one night I got so mad, I shook my fist in the air and I went, "Were you people born in a barn? Don't you know how to knock?" And about 2 weeks later, in my head, and boom, I was on a craft. I thought, well, either I didn't explain it right, or they found a loophole. But inside the craft, it was like there were maybe 100 beds. And we were all on these gurneys, covered in sheets, and almost like these gurneys were on a conveyor belt, and they would just move around. And like it mimicked the inside of a round craft. And as I got close to the doctor, they would put my feet in stirrups, uncover me, so the exam could be performed. And then I'd be taken off the gurney into a room to get my clothes on, and I would wake up in the morning, and I might have blood on my pillow, my head might be at the foot of the bed, I would feel pain, and again, not know what happened because the download would happen weeks, months, years later. But I do have a memory of being on that gurney, being wheeled around and seeing walls filled with big, huge jars of fetuses, of body parts. And I would be horrified today to see that, but at the time, it was just like, oh, that's interesting. Wonder what that is. I mean, it was bizarre, but there was no fear, but I was completely paralyzed. There was one point where because I could move my eyes, I looked over and I saw this gentleman with red hair, and I remember him because at the time, for that brief moment, I had red hair again. It's been every color. And I don't know why he stuck out to me. But years later, I owned an art school for about 11 years, and I was hosting this big party because there was a big party room in front, and then there were 6 classrooms in the back. The red-haired gentleman walked in. And I just looked at him and almost froze. So then I walk up to him and start asking really bizarre questions. So, have you had anything weird happen to you? Want to talk about it? He knew exactly what I was talking about. And he looked at me and goes, "Oh yeah, I've been abducted for years." And he's part of my support group now. I mean, how weird is that I recognize someone on a craft, he knew it, remembered it, and we've been in contact ever since. And again, I have no time frame on this, but it probably would have been the maybe early 90s at this point. But along about the time that all of the physical exams were going on, another group contacted me. And I call them the technological group. And they're showing me programming. They're showing me futuristic things. So we're going to get back to that here in a minute. But I want to talk about more of the physical anomalies that have happened. My blood type has changed twice. It's medically documented. So when I was born with congenital knee issues, and they had to wait till I was an adult size to be able to do surgery. So at 16 and 17, I had surgery done on both of my knees. And they did my blood typing, and it was a B positive. Okay. Well, fast forward, now living in California, and I had a little minor outpatient surgery, and they typed my blood, and they said I'm an A positive. And I said, can your blood type change? No, your blood type can't change. And they laugh at me, make you feel stupid. And so, okay, fine. Well, then fast forward again to Omaha, and I decide I want to be a blood donor. So I go to the Red Cross. Do you know your blood type? A positive? Well, they always type it. It's like, no, you're not. And then I just wanted to cry. Because how do you make sense of this? And they said, no, you're B positive. And I explained what had happened. And they're like, no, they made a mistake. That can't be it. So here's a couple of pictures with different casts on, different times of the year. Yeah, you can't keep a good woman down. Look at her on that boat. That's how I would get through the windshield. Swing that leg over. My parents put a kibosh on it when I said I wanted to try water skiing with a cast on. I also had severe migraine headaches to the point, and I was a little bit older than that. Oh, back up just a little bit. About that age, at 17, I graduated from high school, and I had been raised in the Lutheran church with, God is all loving, but you better fear God or else. And I'm just like, that doesn't make sense to me either. Why should I fear God if he's all loving? And nobody could give me a good answer. So at my graduation party, at age 17, I announced I was an atheist. That went over like a lead balloon. I just didn't know the word agnostic. I didn't know that I was questioning. That I wanted to make sense of it. So shortly after that, my parents said I had to pay rent or move out. Bye-bye. I moved out and started my own life. The thing is, I'd had so much chaos in my life and so much questioning, so many things that didn't make sense, that I just wanted calm. I wanted peace. And yet I chased chaos constantly. And I took that, you will always be safe and always be protected, took that for a big ride. Why can't I get high and roller skate in San Francisco? I'm safe and protected. Can you see where I'm a little slow sometimes? Making sense of things. So the contact constantly happened. The downloads came very, very sporadically, but they were so impactful. And this next thing that I want to talk about is actually another real memory. Just like lying in my bed, having the entities pop in, that was happening. I was aware of it at the time. The rest of the contact was all downloads. There was one other night, and excuse me. I got to get a tissue because it's really hard for me to talk about this. The Grays popped in my bedroom one night, and they said, my daughter needed me. And I thought, my daughter? And then the other part of me wasn't surprised at all. And I said, okay. And they took me up on a craft and put me in a room that was probably the size of a normal bathroom in your home, but it was very sterile looking. Stainless steel, white. And they put me on a little bench in there. And they brought in this little girl who was probably this tall. She looked like death. She had this gray pallor. And this was my daughter. And they put her in my arms because my job was to save her. And every maternal instinct that I didn't think I had kicked into gear. And I held her. And I kissed her. And I told her I loved her. And just held her tighter and tighter and tighter. And I physically could see color come back into her face, into this beautiful peaches and cream complexion. I don't think she even weighed a pound. She was so tiny. And as the color came back into her face, the grays came back into the room to collect her. And I thought, how can I give her up? How can I give up my daughter to these unemotional beings? And I thought, they might not have an emotional attachment to her, but she certainly had an emotional attachment to them. And she jumped off my lap and scampered over to them. And I thought, I did my job. I saved her. And for any of you who have children, can you imagine giving up your child when they're that tiny to beings that have no emotion? It was so difficult. But I knew that that's what I had to do. And I did it. And every time I talk about it, it's like reliving the trauma all over again. But evidently, I'd made a deal with the Grays that night that I would save my daughter if they would introduce me to my other children. And on some level, I knew I had other children. So after they took my daughter, they walked me down a hall into what I would call a very small gymnasium. And there were 2 doors, and they opened them up like that, and there were about 35 children in there. And they were all mine. They looked very alien to me. They had the big, huge black eyes. They were different heights according to their age. They had black hair, very stringy, and it almost looked like they didn't have spines. They were so skinny. And I looked at them like the aliens they were. And they looked at me like some benign intruder. And I shut the doors, and I left. There was no connection to them. But obviously, my daughter is still very special to me. And I've been told that she and I have had contact through the years. I have no memory of it other than that one time. But I woke up in the morning just sobbing. Try to make sense of this. Try to incorporate that in your life when you've got nobody to talk to and you've got nowhere to go. It's so incredibly difficult. Even when I was married, I would walk down around our house and look up into the stars and just cry, I want to go home, I want to go home. This is too difficult. As a 12-year-old, I would babysit. And to usually the family that was just kitty corner from our house. And the parents would come home maybe at 2 o'clock in the morning. And back then, wouldn't fly today, the mom would just watch me from the door to make sure I made it into my home safely. And I'd have to climb over a fence, go through peony bushes, lilac bushes, and I would lie down on the grass and look up in the sky and just beg, I want to go home, I want to go home. And then I would get up 10 feet from my back door and go in the house. And again, it's this theme. I knew life was going to be difficult on some level. I didn't know how. But now I do. And I just, I want to go home. And I've been there. We're going to talk about that too. So that second group that I talked about is the technology group. Okay, it's about to get weird. Because it hasn't been so far. this other group contacted me. And a memory I have is being on a craft in kind of what I call the cockpit. And this thing was huge. And there was tiered seating all the way back. And there were ETs in the kind of the windows in the front. And I was way up here at one of these long tables. And an extraterrestrial who said he was my teacher, he's like, okay, Kristi, come on over here. He was standing at a wall over here. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I was like a little petulant child. And he's like, get over here. I'm like, oh, God, you know I hate technology. You know I'm not any good at it. He said, get over here. Give me the dad look. You know that look? So I got up and went over to this wall of computers. And I started pressing buttons and turning knobs. And like, how do I know how to do this? And I was programming things. I mean, how weird is that? Then he took me to another wall and was starting to show me holographic images. One was a big, huge fire. And there were people running and screaming. And he said, these are the people you're going to save. And I thought, I have never been in a fire. I've never saved anybody. This makes no sense to me. And he goes, you'll know what to do when the time is right. I thought, okay. And there I am, back in bed again. Somebody want to get that? Maybe it's them to come take me home. So after these two different groups, like just the Greys wasn't confusing enough. Now I've got a technological group. But the energy felt very, very different to me. And I wanted it to stop. And so I was talking to the Greys one night. We were flying around somewhere, and I said, I don't want this to happen anymore. These exams are physically invasive. I've now had to have a hysterectomy at a very early age. I've had the migraines. I've had the blood change. I've had all of these physical anomalies. And I was tired of it. I was just done. And so I told them I wanted to stop, and they showed me a contract with my name on it. And they said, you signed this contract that we can have access to you. And I thought, well, I'm a woman of my word. So if I signed a contract, okay. And I let it continue. Well, as time passed, I decided with my journey into metaphysics, I wanted to become a Reiki master. So I took my first class, level 1, and I walked into this class, and the teacher walked in, and I went, oh, it's her. Who's her? And I didn't know, but she was also a hypnotherapist. And she sat down, and she goes, oh, I just had a hypnotherapy session. We were out there, man. We went way out there. And I went, she's the gal for me. Because I knew hypnosis would help me, but all I could find was weight loss, smoking cessation, something like that. And when she said we went way out there, I thought, she's my gal. So I took the Reiki class and started hypnosis. And the first time, I had a list of questions, and one of them was, where did this start? And I immediately went back to this beautiful pink planet. And you can see that on the cover of the book. I had an artist friend paint that for me. And I went to this beautiful pink planet that had water all over it. I had more joy dipping my toe in the water than I have ever experienced on Earth. It was so peaceful, so beautiful. And then I looked behind me, and I saw Earth. And if you've seen the Charlie Brown Snoopy commercial or cartoons, Pigpen, who's got the dirt and garbage, that's what Earth looked like to me. Just dirt and garbage floating around it, and I started to cry. And I said, why are we so mean to each other? Why do we hurt each other? Why do we do that? And I didn't want to go back, because now I was home. That was my pink planet, is home. And I did not want to go back, but it was hypnosis. So I had to. And another question I had was, have I ever seen a UFO from the outside? I have very distinct memories of being in a craft. And so the question, and you go to parties sometimes and people bring up the question, do you believe in UFOs? And I would always say, yes, I do. Have you ever seen one? And my answer was, not from the outside. I was waiting for someone to go, what do you mean, not from the outside? No one ever asked that question, ever. Because that was my symbol, my sign, that somebody was ready to talk about it. But no, they weren't. Nobody was ready to talk about it. And so, that's kind of a standard joke, but under hypnosis, evidently I have seen crafts from the outside. I can't use that joke anymore. But let the healing begin, is how all of this started, with hypnosis. And I found out that this is a multi-life contract that I have had, but I always have power. I always have control. And that's in your life, not just with extraterrestrial contact. And so I went back to the Greys on the next experience, and I said, no, I'm done. I rescind any contract that I've ever had with you. I'm going to rip it up. It does not exist. To my knowledge, I have never had contact with them again. Because there is such a thing as universal law. And you can say, I'm aware of universal law, and you need to leave me alone. And they have to. So I actually said no to everything, and believe it or not, I felt lonely. So I went to the technological group, and I said, okay, sign me up. The Greys I'm done with. The technological group, I'm okay with that. So here's where it gets weird. They are teaching me how to fly crafts. I almost didn't even put that in the book when I was writing it, but I was streaming this conference a few years ago, and there was a guest on there, and I bought her book, and she talks in her book about learning how to fly crafts. So I thought, thank you. And I thought, why write the book if I'm going to leave stuff out? That's just not right. So it's all in there. And the way it started, the craft felt to me like a Volkswagen Bug, about that size. And so I'm in it, and I've got my teacher right next to me. And here's the weird thing. There's no ignition. There's no step on the gas pedal. There's nothing like that. It's a connection with your mind and the craft. And it was making that connection and making me one with the craft that helped me get it off, do lifting. And we started like on this grassy plain, so if we crashed, it wouldn't be horrible. And I just remember almost, that empathy that you have when you're in a car, you're in the passenger seat, and there's a stop sign, and you don't know whether the driver sees it, so you're pressing on the brake on the passenger side. That's kind of what it felt like, trying to get this craft off the ground. Well, evidently, I did it, because then the next memory is learning how to maneuver this craft through mountain ranges. Once I graduated on takeoff. And then the next memory I have is maneuvering through New York City. I was a buyer at one point in my life, and I spent 1 week a month in New York as a buyer, so I know the cityscape very, very well. I couldn't figure out how I got from Omaha to New York in a matter of seconds. But I was maneuvering through those those buildings. Then, what I have been told, what I'm experiencing, is that I am now in a kind of another, not kind of another dimension. I am what I call a first responder. My teacher just kind of laughs at me. He's like, call it whatever you want to. And I fly a craft with another group of people, and we go to planets that are in trouble. And we either evacuate or we help heal, and we go to these planets together. Now, isn't that fascinating? Okay, is my time up? I find it fascinating, and particularly, I am in charge of underwater life. So there are planets that constantly they're either destroying themselves, or because of other conditions, are hurting, and the planets are in pain. And that's why They say one of the biggest crimes is to destroy a planet because it's very much of a ripple effect. And it doesn't affect just Earth, because that's what we're doing right now, is destroying our own home. It has a ripple effect to other planets. And so that is my job. And I do have memories now where when I've been taken by the grays, it's my body that is up on the craft. With the technological group, it's like my soul leaves my body. My body stays in the bed. My soul gets on this craft. We fly to other planets and do our job. And so I'll wake up in the morning a little bit tired from working all the time. But isn't that amazing? And all of us do that. We all astral travel. I mean, our bodies need sleep, but our souls do not. And so I'm up and out there, and like I said, I call it a first responder, and they're like, yeah, whatever. Okay. So let the healing... I look a little bit like an E.T., don't you think? With that little troll doll? I just thought that was pretty funny. So about 2 weeks after I published my book, We Are Not Alone, I was contacted by a filmmaker. And we started making a documentary about the book. And I thought writing the book was scary. Sitting in front of that camera telling my story was the scariest thing ever to do. And we started filming and COVID came, so we had to shut down. And finally, after COVID was over, we resumed filming. And the film premiered this past January in Omaha. We were in a local theater. And we had showings January, February, March. It's not available, but I've been told by the end of this month, it will be available on YouTube. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And what's so weird is the movie is about me, but it's not my movie. It belongs to the producers, and that's Tiny Space Productions and Illuminating Hearts. And they took my story and made it into a beautiful work of art. They did an amazing job. So the last update I had from them is that hopefully by the end of the month it'll be on YouTube. So, okay, just between you and me, we want it to go viral. So it's going to be free on YouTube because we want it to go viral, so hopefully maybe Gaia, Netflix, Prime will pick it up. So yeah, spread the word, share. So where do we go from here? February 2021, I think, I was getting ready to teach an online class on automatic writing. And me being me, I said, gosh, maybe I should practice this so I know what I'm doing. I put pen to paper, and what came out was, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ramadir. I hail from the planet Eurydice. And I wrote back, are you my spirit guide? And he said, no, I'm a guide of your planet. And we wrote a few more pages, and I put it aside, going, well, evidently I can do this, so I can teach the class. Later that October, I'm in my favorite place on Earth, which is Half Moon Bay, California. I call it the town that time forgot. There's 2 gas stations, a grocery store, and it's right on the beach. It's fabulous. And so I'm with my friend. We met, she's from Seattle. We met on the beach. And I'm journaling, writing, and I heard, put your pen down, put your journal down, enjoy your vacation, enjoy your friend. I said, all right. And I put it away and said, we'll download when you return. That very day, my friend took that picture of me on the beach. Isn't that neat? Yeah. And so you can see I obviously was enjoying the vacation. The day I got home, pick up your pen, pick up your journal. We're going to write a book together. I'm like, okay. So I'm writing, and he's like, this is so slow, this is so cumbersome. So I switched to my computer and started writing because this is still so slow, but we want your commitment. And a few pages in, I went, oh my God, I recognize your energy. You're my teacher on the craft that day. And he said, finally, you figured it out. So these books are very intertwined with each other. So Ramadir is an extraterrestrial who happens to be my teacher from the technological group. told you it was going to get weird. And so I now am hosting small groups, and he told me in this book that I would start trans-channeling and giving messages for humanity, hope for humanity. And he is the voice of a collective. And so it's all of these ETs that are part of this collective. He is the voice for it, coming through me. Trans-channeling is I kind of step out of my body, he steps in and delivers messages. So that's why it is a collective hope for humanity. And people can ask personal questions, global, galactic questions, and he answers them. I've already outgrown my house with this, and I'm having to rent buildings now to do this, because it's so funny, though, that at the end of a session, people go, you know what you said to her? And I'm like, I have no clue. I was taking a nap in the back room over there, because I have no idea what's going on. And so people are now starting to record it, so I have an idea. But that's what I want to talk about with life. You know, we all have goals. We all have plans. How many of you can say, I'm living the life I dreamt as a child? Nobody. You can? Awesome. Good for you. Most people have the twists and the turns and the ups and the downs, trying to figure it all out. And you look back and go, I never could have dreamt this. Wow, this is some crazy stuff. But I have healed. I have spent my life with these puzzle pieces of here's the psychic medium stuff, here's the extraterrestrial stuff, here's the family stuff, here's the business stuff. My worst nightmare was having my worlds collide. My worlds have collided. And it's the best life ever. And I tell people all the time, I've got the best job ever. And the way I came public as a psychic medium is my hypnotherapist, my Reiki instructor, she would have practice sessions every month. So one night I showed up for practice and nobody showed up but me. And she goes, well, you're going to have to do Reiki on me then. And I'm like, doing Reiki on you is like doing Reiki on puppies and rainbows. You've got such great energy. The minute I put my hands on her, I went, oh, something is wrong. Something's very wrong. But I was so focusing on the right Reiki hand positions, I wasn't paying attention. And finally, I got down to her feet, and I went, I got to stop. I'm going to get sick. I'm going to faint, or I'm going to throw up. And so I grabbed a waste paper basket and sat down, and she goes, do you want to know what's going on? Yeah, that'd be nice. She goes, my mom recently passed away. I went, that's it. Her mom was trying to get hold of me, and I wasn't paying any attention. I was busy focusing on doing Reiki the proper way. And at that moment, I remember putting a stake in the ground and saying, her need for closure with her mother is more important than my fear of being discovered. And I gave her a spontaneous reading to give her closure with her mother. Now that she's safe, she's not going to make fun of me. 2 days later, my phone started ringing. I hear you're a psychic medium. I said, yep, come on over. And it took a year for that to be my full-time job. And like I said earlier, this is the subtext of everything I do is courage. To say yes. We are so programmed from the time we are born. If you're good, I'll give you a cookie. If you're bad, you go sit in time out. And we create ourselves in this image of what we think others expect us to be. And that's just wrong. And I have people coming to me all the time. I've done everything I was told to do. Why am I not happy? And it's like, because you've done everything you were told to do. And you need to be yourself. I finally have discovered who I am, why I'm on this planet. I'm on this planet to help others step into their own power and realize who they are. Don't make yourself small anymore. Be proud of who you are. I say, look up in the night sky. What star is better than another star? That's what makes up a night sky. Look in a forest. What tree is better than another tree? No, all of them. That's what makes a forest. We look in this room. Which person is better than another person? No, that's what makes up humanity. And you need to discover who you are and be proud of who you are. Have the courage because there are consequences sometimes. I've got certain family members that won't speak to me because of this. There are consequences. But it's been worth it. Absolutely 100% worth it. So here is how I can be contacted. If anybody has any other questions for me, KristiPederson.com. Hopefully you all will watch the movie when it comes out. And I would like to open this up now. I thank you all for being here so early this morning. Thank you. And I would love to open this up for questions. Yeah, up here, please.
Hi.
Oh, I'm telling her to come closer.
Thank you for this beautiful talk. I've been doing QHHT for 6 years. I've been contacted over 15 years ago. They put me on a path so I can be a bridge of worlds. So I started doing QHHT, and they started sending me people from different parts of the U.S. who have been visited and have had experiences, and for them to go beyond the fear of the mind of what it is. Mm-hmm. So, of course, there's so much to share, but what I want to ask about, I worked with a few women who've had hybrid children. One of them is with Grays. They're the positive ones. They shared with me that their planet was destroyed because they focused on technological developments more than spiritual, which led to their own destruction. Some of them went inside the planet, and that's how their shapes started to change. They realized that the emotional body was part of it, so they did something to their emotional body so they don't do it again. And years after, they realized that there is something that connects them with God through the emotional body. So they started doing started sending people here so they can work with. So the two women that they said that they agreed to this agreement where they could have children, hybrid children, so they can return their emotional body for the Grays. I mean, there's so much more to this, but there's another question, another case that I worked on. There's this woman that came and she said, I know I might sound crazy, I have 2 children here and I know what it is to be a mother, and I know that I have hybrid children, and I want you to take me there, I want to see them. So we went to inside the mountains in New Zealand where there are hybrid children of hers. They're very big. They said she was saying that they hover, they visit her, they love her so much, and also they said that they will come to the surface sometime, not anytime soon, but sometime in the future to assist humanity. Yeah. There's more to that, but my question is, because I still think about all those hybrid children. Yeah. In a way, I worked with some women who have those hybrid children, and I wonder about yours, and if you are in contact, if you know what their mission is, if you can see them.
The other children, to my knowledge, I have not had any more contact with. My daughter, supposedly, I have had contact periodically with her. I have no memory other than the one time when I saved her. But I'm so glad you talked about spirituality. One of the last things when I was in hypnosis, the hypnotherapist asked me, she goes, what is your higher self, what do your spirit guides think of your extraterrestrial contact? And I went, oh my God, it's the same thing. If we are all one, we're all one, and people think small in human terms, that all humans are one. And it's, no, if we're all one, we break apart from one, and some are expressing themselves as extraterrestrials, some are expressing themselves as humans, some people as pets, and we all come from Source. And it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing this. It's very important for all of us to integrate this part of reality and to move beyond fear, because when we're stuck in fear, our perception of what's going on is so distorted by that. So,
We're stuck in fear, and it takes people like us to say, I'm done. Thank you.
Please step up to 2-1.
You mentioned that you were out of body when you were with the technological, learning to fly the ships. And so, do they have bodies?
They appear as they have bodies, but it's my understanding they were actually all just energy. But we have the ability to have a body however we want that to look.
So you had an energy body
Yes.
when you were with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was afraid to look in the mirror, though. I don't.
Oh, well, next time look in the mirror because we're all curious.
Okay. Thank you.
Please step up to 1.
Morning.
Good morning.
Excuse me. I have a two-part question. I think it's short answers for both. One, what percent of our world's population do you think have been abducted?
I have been told as little as 2 and as much as 10%. And a lot of people just don't have the memory of it.
I understand that. And the second one would be, what percent of the population do you believe are possibly hybrids?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. I really don't know. I would think it's a pretty small percentage because they're learning how to perfect it, but I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you experience a friendly abduction telepathically?
Yes. So that would be them just talking to you, coming in and talking to you?
And you are on that ship, and you
Yeah.
are experiencing it,
Yes.
and you are meeting with your mother, your
Yeah.
true mother,
Yeah.
and you are on the spaceship, and you are experiencing it telepathically.
Most of them are friendly. You know, everybody focuses on the
Yeah.
reptilians, and even some of the reptilians are friendly. Not all of them are
Right.
bad. And, you know, again, it's that fear that's being given to us that, oh, we're going to be invaded by aliens. If they wanted us dead, we'd be dead. They're here to save us from ourselves.
Thank you so much.
It's true.
How are you? I enjoyed this whole conference, but I've enjoyed you more than anything so far. And
Thank you.
You're a lot of the reason that I came here. Hold it back just a little bit. There we go. I had a gentleman wanted me to ask a question as far as, I don't know if he's maybe wanting a show of hands, how many people actually have hybrid children that are here?
Oh, great question. How many people here have hybrid children that they're aware of? We've got it. Yeah, maybe 3 or 4. Interesting. Yeah, great question.
This is very difficult for me to come up here. I didn't come here for a UFO conference. 2.5 years ago, you could have never made me believe this. I had too much.
Surprise.
I had too much common sense. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I learned pretty fast that common sense is common because it's something that you were taught. And I was contacted for the first time about 3 or 4 months ago, and by my higher self, telling me that I was one of 144,000 first fruits, and that's why I'm here. I made contact a few times, and I don't even believe in this. I guess I do. But when they asked me, do you want the same room next year, I said, let me wait and see how bad all these quacks are in there before I make it. And then I figured out real fast that I only came for all the psychic mediums and everything, so I'm right there too. I have been blown away by what's happened to me in 3 or 4 months.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Well, I was told that I was on a fast track, and I'm sitting here thinking if I'm one of the 144,000, something's going to happen pretty soon, because I don't have forever here. I've had 58 surgeries. I'm an amputee. I've been broken half. My pelvis broke off my backbone and broke in 7 spots, and I mean, I can go on and on and on. I'm just blown away by everything that's happened to me. And when I see you up there, I saw myself a little bit.
Good.
Because how bubbly and how when I'm with any friends, we're all laughing because I'm so quick-witted and we're just, you know, and I saw that in you. And I think I may be part of whatever you got going on. So anyway, it was more of a statement than anything, than a question. But
I appreciate it.
I appreciate
Thank you.
yeah.
It's a journey, for sure.
I have a quick question. This is about my 10th conference. I keep hearing speakers say they're here to help us. I don't see, can you tell me where they're helping us? Because in the world right now, I don't see it. We're destroying our planet, our oceans. You know, we're overfishing, we're overpopulating.
Yeah.
If they're so intelligent, why don't they run for Congress? I mean, we could use some intelligence in
Because they're so intelligent.
So, can you tell me what areas they are actually helping us?
That's a wonderful question. We are on a planet of free will, so they cannot interfere with us up to a certain point. So what's actually happening is people are awakening to their real purpose on this earth, or being born knowing that they are starseeds on a particular mission. So all the information is coming from them, but certain individuals are picking it up, and that's why there are individuals that are learning a new way to recycle, a new way to pre-cycle, a new way to save energy, and it's coming through us. But because of our population, we've got so many brand new souls coming in, and they're the ones that are kind of creating some of the trouble that we're in. But there are other light workers, starseeds, that are awakening up to their true mission and helping, and that information is coming them. So it's not necessarily a craft coming down going, hey, hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. I'm gonna help you change this. It's coming through energy, through telepathy to certain individuals on this planet.
Well, I still have hope. I probably won't see it in my lifetime.
You'll see increments of it in your lifetime, for sure.
I hope so.
Yeah,
Because
and
it's
me
hard
both.
to see it now.
it
But
really is.
But I never give up hope.
And that's with my Ramadir book. It's a collective hope for humanity of what we can do as individuals to help save the planet, and that information's coming from an extraterrestrial.
Okay.
I love
and
that you
also,
asked
I
that.
always had this question. All these people that have contact, you know, with extraterrestrials, do they ever ask the question, is there a God as we know and we practice here and what we're told, how we're raised, that there is a supreme God?
In my book, Ramadir, I said something about God, is that correct? And he said yes and no. If you were raised as a Christian, God is the correct. If you were raised as a Muslim, it is not correct. But, so that's why sometimes I will use the word source, because that encompasses everybody. But to my knowledge, every extraterrestrial is more in touch with source than we are as humans. Because one of the stories in the book, I love this story, was he said, life is very much like the child's birthday party game, pin the tail on the donkey. I'm like, what? And he said, you go to a birthday party, how fun would it be if they handed you a tail and said, see that donkey over there, go pin on the tail. And you're like, okay. He said, what makes it fun is you're blindfolded, you're spun around. How do you achieve? You listen to your partygoers. You're hot, you're warm, oh, now you're cold. And that's how you succeed. So in spirit, we all know exactly who we are. We come down on this planet like we've been blindfolded and spun around. So how do we succeed at achieving what we came here to achieve? We listen to our spirit guides. We listen to our extraterrestrials. We listen, and they will guide us and help us achieve what we came here to achieve. You're welcome.
I just wanted to let you know that you're not the only one that had near-death experiences as a small child. I also did, and grew up in a Lutheran household too. Yeah, I was also curious how many other people here have had near-death experiences, and how many of us have brought back from that experience, have brought back gifts.
Oh, good question.
Is there anybody else?
Oh, yeah, there's quite a few people.
The gift that I brought back was I was introduced to some of my own angels during the experience, and I can still see them today. And while you were speaking, I drew one of yours.
Thank you. Oh, do I get it?
Actually, I can get it, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Here.
You have to sign it, though.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay. Thank you. That's so sweet.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that. Well, can I hold it up real quick?
Yeah.
All right. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And while we're waiting for the next question, I do have a table downstairs where I'll be selling my 2 books, The We Are Not Alone and Messages from Ramadir. So I'll be down there after. Okay.
Hello. I have sort of a 2-part question. The first one is, are there I think I had experiences as a child. So are there tools that can kind of help you remember if you're unsure, or maybe remember more of the details, so that can kind of inform your guidance moving forward to reconnect with your spirit guides?
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. Hypnosis is usually the best, and you come with your questions. And then one of the things that I do personally as a psychic medium. Oh, my time's up.
You got 15 more minutes.
Okay.
You got 15 more minutes.
Oh, okay. As a psychic medium, what I do is I help people connect to their spirit guides and introduce them. So people keep things so separate that my spirit guides are over here, my extraterrestrials are over here, and it's all the same thing. I mean, my spirit guides are extraterrestrial. So it's giving permission to them, first of all, through meditation, that yes, I want to know more, I'm ready to learn. Find a good hypnotherapist and do that, or a good psychic medium, and they will help you.
And the second part is, what role does our nourishment, our food, TV shows, stuff like that, what role does that play, or does it can it disconnect us from our spirit guides, or is it just kind of not effective?
Again, it goes back to programming with the food we eat. And in the Ramadir book, he talks about you start by growing your own food. And yes, the soil's been contaminated. We've got acid rain. We've got all of these things. Ideally, we should get pure potting soil, grow it in a greenhouse with purified water, but we can still start by growing our own food. And so there are things that we can do, and that's stepping away from the program. And that I always say that's like being of the world but not in the world, and you step back and you observe what's going on without you taking on that programming and starting over. So what makes me healthy? Is it processed food? Is it preservatives? Is it that? No, it's not healthy for anybody. So if we go back to pure food, girlfriend loves a bag of Cheetos, I'm just saying. But if we start heading in that direction, that's how we can heal ourselves and heal the planet.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, I think that's it. Thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate it.